going out of ourselves and depending us constantly and entirely upon the Spirit. Wherein is showed the necessity of going out of ourselves even when our habitual and actual preparations are at the greatest height, and depending us constantly and entirely upon the Spirit, who is Lord of all gracious influences, as if we had done nothing, together with the means of working the heart to such a frame. Thus, you have seen your habitual and actual readiness for sufferings, and blessed is the soul that gives diligence to this work. But now, lest all that I have said unto you have wrought should be in vain, I must let you know that all this will not secure you unless you can, by humility, faith, and self-denial, go out of yourselves to Christ and live upon Him daily for supplies of grace, as much as if you had none of all this furniture and provision for sufferings. I confess grace is a very beautiful and lovely creature, and it is hard for a man to look upon his own graces and not dote upon them. But yet know that if you had all these excellent preparations that have been mentioned, yea, and all angelical perfections superadded, you are not complete without this dependence upon Christ. Colossians 2 verse 10. Wherever you go, for to suffer for Christ, you should say at the head of all of your excellent graces, duties, and preparations, as Jehoshaphat did, when at the head of a puissant and mighty army. 2 Chronicles 20 verse 10. O Lord, I have no might nor strength but miser unto thee. This is one thing in which Paul excelled and was a special part of his readiness. See 1 Corinthians 15 verse 10. What a poor creature is the eminentest saint left to himself in an hour of trial. The hop, the ivy, and the woodbine are taught by nature to cling about stronger props and supporters. What they do by nature we should do by grace. The necessity and great advantage of this will appear under a number of considerations. Number 1, the Christian's own imbecility and insufficiency, even in the strength and height of all of its requirements and preparations. What are you to grapple with such an adversary? Certainly you are no match for him that conquered Adam hand to hand in a state of integrity. It is not your inherent strength that enables you to stand, but what you receive and daily derive from Jesus Christ. John 15 verse 5. Without me, or never so little separated from me, ye can do nothing. All your sufficiency is of God. 2 Corinthians 3 verse 5. Upon this very consideration it was that the apostle exhorts the Ephesians to be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might, i.e., not to depend upon their own stock and furniture, but divine assistances and daily communications. For we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but principalities and powers. Ephesians 6 verses 10 and 12. In his own strength shall no man prevail. Consideration number 2. It is a great design of God in the gospel to exalt his Son, and to have all glory attributed and ascribed to him, that in all things he might have the preeminence. Colossians 1 verse 18. That Christ might be all in all. Colossians 3 verse 11. Hence no saint must have a self-sufficiency or be trusted with the stock as Adam was, but Christ being filled with all the fullness of God and made the first receptacle of all grace. For it pleased the Father that in him all fullness should dwell. All the saints are therefore to go to him for supplies, and of his fullness to receive. John 1 verse 16. This fullness being a ministerial fullness like that of the Son, or of a fountain intended to supply all our wants, and hence it is that faith, the self-emptying and denying grace, is appointed to be the instrument of fetching our supplies from Christ. All must be derived from him, that all the praise and glory may be ascribed to him. Philippians 4 verse 14. And this is a most wise and congruous ordination of God, for hereby not only are his people the better secured, but by this also the reproach that lay upon Christ is rolled away. He was reproached on earth as barren, empty, weak. Can any good come out of Nazareth? He was looked upon as a root springing out of a dry ground. But by this shall his reproach be wiped away, so that unless he will go about to cross the great design of God in the exaltation of his Christ, you must go out of yourselves and humbly and constantly rely upon supplies from Christ and his grace to help in a time of need. Consideration number 3. A Christian is constantly to depend upon Christ, notwithstanding all of his own preparations and inherent qualifications. because the activity even of inherent grace depends upon him. Inherent grace is beholden to exciting and assisting grace for all it is enabled to do. You cannot act a grace without his Spirit, 1 Corinthians 15, verse 10, 2 Corinthians 3, verse 5, John 15, verse 5. It may be said of grace in us as it was of the land of Canaan in Deuteronomy 11, 10-12. It is not as the land of Egypt whence you came out, where there sowest thy seed and waterest it with thy foot as a garden of herbs, but a land of hills and valleys, drinking water of the rain of heaven, a land which the Lord thy God cares for. His eyes are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even to the end of the year. As the life and fragrancy of vegetables depend on the influences of heaven, so do our graces upon Christ. And hence he is called, number 1, a root, Isaiah 11:10. Number 2, an head, Colossians 1:18. Number 3, a son, Malachi 4, verse 2. And number 4, a fountain, Zechariah 13:1. All which comparisons do fully carry this truth in them. Consideration number 4, lastly, in this life of dependence lies your security. And indeed, this is a great difference between the two covenants. In the first, Adam's stock was in his own hands, and so his security or misery depended upon the unconstrained choice of his own mutable and self-determining will. But now in the new covenant, all are to go to Christ, to depend upon him for supplies, and are so secured against all destructive dangers, Jude 1, 1 Peter 1, verse 5. Should you go forth in your own strength against a temptation, either your grace would fail, and you fall in the conflict, or if you obtain any victory over it by your own strength, yet it is 1,000-to-1, but your pride would conquer you when you had conquered it. Like him that slew an elephant, but was himself slain by the fall of that elephant which he slew. But now, by this way as God has secured you against the dangers without, so also the frame and constitution of this new covenant is such as prevents the danger arising from our own pride too, not ego et Deus man. I and my God did this, as was once said by a profane mouth, but self is abased and the Lord lifted up in his own strength, 1 Corinthians 5:7. And thus I have briefly evinced the necessity of this daily dependence. But next it concerns you to know what this dependence we speak of is. This also I shall briefly open to you, laying down somewhat negatively and somewhat positively about it. Negatives. Number 1. It is not to deny the grace wrought in us by the Spirit. This are both injustice and ingratitude. We may know our own graces so as to be thankful for them. 1 Corinthians 15:10. Number 2. Negative. It is not a lazy excuse from our duty. You do not depend, but rather dishonor Christ by so doing. You must not say, because Christ must do all, therefore I must do nothing. Rather work out your salvation, because it is he that works both to will and to do. Philippians 2:12 and 13. These are not opposed but subordinated. But in positively it lies in 3 things. Number 1, in seeing and acknowledging the infinite sufficiency and fullness that is in Christ, to acknowledge him to be all in all, not only by way of impartation, procuring all, Hebrews 9:12, but also by way of application, bringing home to the soul all the blessings purchased by his blood, and settling us in the possession of it, John 14, verse 3. And so first to last, till I am as the author and finisher of our faith. Number 2, positive, in seeing the necessary dependence that all our graces have upon him, so as that you see the stream depending on the fountain, the beam upon the sun, and the branch upon the root, the building upon the foundation, even so do our graces upon Christ. On him they live, and cut off from him they die. Our life is hid with Christ in God, Colossians 3:3. When you see this, and also see that all your activity and striving is but as a hoisting up of the sails, in order to the motion of the ship, which can do nothing till there come a gale. When you look upon your grace as a creature that must be upheld, fed, acted, and preserved by Christ, Colossians 2:19, then you are prepared for this act of dependence. As for instance, you can never depend upon Christ for the acting of that grace of hope until you see Christ to be the prop and foundation of it, and that it depends upon him as upon its cause, 1 Peter 1:3, as upon its object, Hebrews 6, verse 19, and as upon its foundation, groundwork, Colossians 1, verse 27. You can never depend upon Christ for your joy and comfort until you see what a necessary dependence this also has upon him, Philippians 3, verse 3, and that both as to its being and acting, John 16, verse 22. You can never depend upon him for strength in any duty until you see how your duties depend upon Christ, not only for the strength by which they are performed, John 15, 4 and 5, but also for acceptation when they are performed, 1 Peter 2, 5. It were easy to instance in any other grace. Number 3, it lies in looking off from your own grace whenever you are put upon the acting of it. I mean in regard of any dependence upon it, and looking by an eye of faith for acceptation to Christ, Hebrews 12, 2. To the putting forth of which act of dependence upon Christ, holy ejaculations and our own onsets upon duty, or those quick and vigorous liftings up of our souls to God that way, are of special use, it being a duty fitted for the purpose, when there is no room for set and solemn prayer, and thus briefly of its nature. And to urge you to this duty I shall offer these 7 considerations, which, that they might prevail upon your hearts, and make you forever to clasp and cling about Christ, more than ever you have done. Considerations. Number 1. You have a little reason to rely upon the strength of your own graces, for you may be easily deceived in that matter, and think you have much more grace than you have. How often are the common gifts of the Spirit mistaken for his special graces? The 6th chapter to the Hebrews is able to make a man tremble in this thing. Consideration. Number 2. Suppose you have much grace, yet you have not strong corruptions, and may you not meet with strong temptations also? He that has less of other graces than you may have more humility and self-denial than you, and so may stand when you fall. Great enlargements are often attended with great temptations of pride, and so on. Consideration number 3. Whatever measures of grace you have arrived at, yet all is not able to secure you from falling, if God withhold or withdraw his aids and influences. Abraham had more faith than you, and yet he fell into a sin contrary to that very grace wherein he so excelled others. Genesis 20, verse 2. Job had more patience than you, which of you could have behaved yourselves as he did? Had you been in the like circumstances as he was? Chapter 1, verse 2. He is renowned for it in the Scripture, James 5, verse 11. Yet he fell into that sin which is contrary to this grace also, chapter 3. Moses had more meekness than you. Now the man Moses was the meekest man upon the earth. If he be but reproved, and not justly for your faults, how waspish are you? Yet see how this grace fell even in him, and an imminent trial of it in Numbers 11:13-15. Adam was much more advantaged in this respect than you, being made upright and no corruption inherent in him, yet he fell. The angels more again, yet they fell. Oh, when will you learn the vanity of self-dependence? Consideration 4. Nothing more provokes the Lord to withdraw his spirit and let you fall than this sin of self-confidence does. Luke 14, verses 29-31. God will teach you by sad experience your own weakness and what frail and vain things you be if you will learn it by no other means. Consideration 5. If God permit you to fall, as doubtless he will if you be self-conceited, then the more eminent you have been or are for grace, the more will the name of God be reproached by your fall. This will furnish the triumphs of the uncircumcised and the lamentations of your brethren, and make them say, How were the mighty fallen? What dismal consequence will attend your fall? Consideration 6. Have you not sad experience of your own weakness from day to day in your lesser trials? Have you not said in some smaller conflicts, as David once did, My feet had well nigh slipped? Oh, methinks this should teach you to look more to God and less to self. If you have run with footmen, and they have wearied you in the land of peace, think how sadly you should contend with horses in the swellings of Jordan. Do not you see that you are but feathers in the wind of temptation? Consult your former experiences, and they will tell you what weaklings you are. Consideration 7. Lastly, has Christ given you more grace than others? Then how much more has he obliged you to honor him thereby? And is this your requital of his love? What? To take the crown from his head and put it upon your own? Certainly a greater injury cannot be done to Christ than this. Well then, by all this be persuaded to cease from yourselves, yea, from your religious selves, and to all your other preparations add this as a choice one. If you do these things, you shall never fall. And thus you see the complete Christian in the equipage for sufferings.